Samsung and Apple have always been looked to as fierce rivals competing in many of the same markets to get users to pick a side and hoping that those users will eventually stick to them forever. They have notoriously gone to court multiple times for many different problems, with either one not being afraid to forward a lawsuit. However, what so many users do not know is that Samsung and Apple work together closely in the manufacturing of so many products, that Apple gives billions to Samsung each year, and that each one of them relies upon and needs the other one to simply exist. Contrary to what so many people believe, Samsung actually does not make the majority of its revenue through sales of its devices or even its smartphones. In fact, a while ago, there were rumors that Samsung was going to stop selling smartphones altogether. In reality, Samsung's main source of revenue is actually selling semiconductors and parts to many other manufacturers, with one of the biggest companies that they sell to being, as you guessed it, Apple. On the other hand, Apple does actually make most of its revenue through the sales of devices such as the iPhone, for example, and with the huge demand for such devices, Apple has always resorted to other companies for many parts of its iPhone, and Samsung, as you guessed it, has always been one of its biggest suppliers. There are many examples of this, with the iPhone X being a recent one. With the iPhone X, Apple wanted to transition its phones to OLED technology, which is infamously known for being difficult and expensive to manufacture, with only a few companies around the world capable of supplying Apple with such a huge quantity in a short time to fit the demand for the iPhone, and that is when Samsung stepped in. In fact, their history together goes as far back as the A4 chip and the iPhone 4. The A4 was actually made by Samsung and was one of many chips made by Samsung for Apple, including other chips, till the A9, which was the last Apple chip made by Samsung before they switched to TSMC, their current main supplier. It has been years since the A9 was made by Samsung. However, over the past 2 years, Samsung saw another opportunity to make money through Apple, and Samsung immediately jumped in. 2020 was absolutely a great year for Apple, and a year in which Apple decided to change it all. Apple decided to transition away from Intel processors on all of its devices and instead rely completely on ARM-based processors, and Samsung saw that as an opportunity to take a slice of the profit. Samsung wanted to play a big part in the manufacturing of the new chips since it knew that those chips would be wildly successful and would be the future of the biggest tech company in the world. So, Samsung decided to supply Apple with a crucial part of its new M1 chips, known as FCBGA. These are printed circuit boards used to connect the semiconductor chip to the main substrate, and they are essential for Apple. After some discussions, Apple decided to go with Samsung as the supplier, as they have proved reliable over the years, and Samsung is one of the few companies capable of supplying such quantities. The fact that Samsung was the one supplying Apple with these parts was not revealed except a year after the M1 was originally announced. A short while ago, Apple actually announced the second generation of M chips, the new M2, and as expected, Samsung wanted to be a part of that too and supply Apple with the FCBGA, and after some discussions, Apple decided to go with Samsung again, and Samsung is taking this deal very seriously. Reports are saying that Samsung has recently invested around $1 billion in building a new FCBGA production facility. Furthermore, the company also invested $241 million into the facility in South Korea, its homeland. Apple, reportedly, started working on its M2 chips back in 2020 immediately after the announcement of the M1 chips, since Apple knew it would take so much time, and it took them 2 full years, but Apple did it, and in WWDC 2022, Apple announced its M2 and the MacBook Air was the first device to feature it as expected. Apple's M2 chip is not a single chip, but it will be used as the base of so many others. So far, Apple has used the M2 chip to build an M2 Pro and Max, and this is not the end of it, as Apple has just announced an M2 Ultra. This is going to be the most powerful chip of the year, and it is going to feature in the Mac Pro and the Mac Studio. And now, with Samsung being part of this huge deal, Samsung is set to make a huge profit from it, as they always do. It still feels weird seeing Apple and Samsung work together after all these years since they have been known to not really get along, but it is good to see that they can still put these things aside and work together whenever they need to. Hey folks! Want to browse the web safely and without restrictions? Let me introduce you to ExpressVPN, a partner of our channel that helps you do just that. With ExpressVPN, you can protect your online data, unlock content from around the world, and enjoy a faster internet connection. It's like giving your online presence a superhero cape. And here's the best part, by using my special link in the description below, you can save a whopping 50% and get an extra 3 months free. And don't worry, if you're not completely satisfied, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Click the link, and grab this exclusive deal.